Hi boys and girls, Mr. Trewin here. Yesterday we talked about narrative writing. We looked at the structure of writing a narrative. And today I want to look at an example of a brilliant narrative. What you're looking at here is the cover of a book that's put out every year by the Sydney Morning Herald and the Sun Herald. And it's basically a compilation, a mixture of award-winning short stories by primary school students from years 1 to year 6. The competition's called Write On. Our school participates in it. We've had a couple of winners over the years. But every year a picture is given as what we call the stimulus. And this is the picture that was given that year, way back in 2010. And students then have to go on and write a creative piece, whether it be a narrative or a poem or something else. But I'm going to show you a narrative today written by someone about your age, a student from stage 1. And I'm going to get you to comment and tell me what you think is so fantastic about this story. So, quick recap on yesterday's lesson. We talked about a narrative. After we've done our title, of course, we have the orientation, where we basically we set up who the main character is or characters are. We talk a bit about maybe what they look like and what they are like, maybe their personality, and where the story is set. We also might get a bit of a taste of what's to come. After that, we move on to usually a problem, which we call the complication. And that's a big part of our story because our characters have to try and work through that problem. And that leads us on to what we call a series of events. A series of events. And the series of events is, a run of things that happen that lead us here to our resolution, which is the solving of the problem, the resolution. Okay, and then it leads us to the coda. Now, this isn't always present in our stories, but it may very well be. And that's where the character shows that they've learned something. It might show us how they've grown through the story, that kind of thing, how they've changed and maybe are better off as a result of the experiences they've had in the story. So let's dive in and have a look at the story. And I'll try and point out, maybe after the story, where the orientation, complication, series of events, resolution, and possibly the coda are in this award-winning story. Okay, so this was given a bronze medal, and the story is called Golden Fields. Again, going back to the photo stimulus that the boy used. And, here he is here, Caelum Gilmore, Stage 1 from Hill End Public School. Max stared at the golden grains swaying in the breeze. He was wondering when it would be time to strip his golden crop. Lightning flashed in the distance and dashed through the sky. Grey clouds gathered on the horizon in the west. Gentle rain began to sprinkle down onto Max Dryzerbone. He began to think it was time to get the tractor out and take off his ripe crop of wheat before it got wet from the approaching storm. Heavy rain would destroy his crop by pushing the stalks into the wet ground. Soaking rain would break the fragile stalks and make the grains fall forcefully into the wet mud. As Max stared at his ripe wheat crop, the trees began to sway gently with the gathering wind. Mac rushed to the old, rusty machinery shed to climb into his big red tractor cab. He turned the key and the engine rumbled. Then he drove over to his golden field as the storm built up more and more. Max felt worried about the dark storm because it would destroy his crop if it reached him before he could strip it. The harvester ran through the fields of gold, picking up the ripe grains of wheat. He put his foot down on the pedal to rev the engine and drive the harvester faster as the storm built up. The storm was still far away in the distance, so Mac felt relieved that he had only one block of crop to go. He drove back into the shed with the truck full of grain and poured storage box. Just as the rain started to pour down on the metal roof, Mac felt very relieved because he had been able to get the crop safely into the harvesting box. Mac walked inside his house to meet his worried family. He walked to the phone and called the grain buyers to let them know that the grain was ready to be picked up. At the end of the hard day, he went to bed after the feast with his family. He felt very happy and relieved and tired. As the rain poured down like a lullaby, Mac drifted off to sleep. So let's go back over this magnificent story And have a look. Here we go at our orientation. The very start here, we see our main character. We meet our main character, Mac. We get a sense of what he's doing. We know that he's working here with a crop. And it leads us down here to the problem as it becomes more established. Lightning flashed in the distance and dashed through the sky. Grey clouds gathered on the horizon in the west, and gentle rain began to sprinkle down. He began to think it was time to get the tractor out before it got wet from the storm. So we see that there's a problem here emerging, our complication. Okay, and then it sort of hints further at what will happen if it rains heavily on his crop. And then we start to really see here the emergence or the beginning of the series of events that leads to solving or resolving the problem, the resolution. So he rushes over, gets into the tractor cab, put his foot down on the pedal to rev the engine. Okay, so he's doing the actions required to solve the problem. Storm was still far away in the distance. He felt relieved that he had only one block of crop to go on. Leads us to the next paragraph. Then we've got Max felt very relieved because he was able to get the crop safely. So he's finally solved the problem. And then it takes us here to the end of the story where the problem's resolved. And it's a bit of a happily ever after kind of finish. Mac walked inside the house to meet his worried family, walked to the phone, called the grain buyers to let them know that the grain was ready to be picked up and everything was okay. And at the end of the hard day, went to bed after the feast with his family, and he felt very happy and relieved and tired. As rain poured down like a lullaby, Mac drifted off to sleep. So we're not really seeing a coda, but in terms of, we learn that he has, I guess that he's appreciative of what he's got and the way things worked out. But more than anything, we do have a problem that has been resolved. So a fantastic story written by someone about your age, which just shows if we work hard, the sort of things that we can achieve. A great story by Caelum Gilmore. And a fantastic narrative. One of the magnificent things about this story is its descriptive language. The descriptive language in this story, I'll write that down there for you now, descriptive language. So lots of adjectives, lots of compound sentences and complex sentences, and that's going to lead me up to actually what I want to do with you next, which is to write some descriptive sentences using adjectives and what we call adjectival phrases. I'm going to wrap it up there because I've been talking for quite a while. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Stay tuned for the activity. Thank you.